Do you believe in myths? Are you ready to find out the true story and origin behind the beast and creatures on your favorite Funko Pops? Get ready for a brand new series that will chill you to your bone. Welcome to Funko Myths Explained. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Cody from Popular Opinion. We've got a special presentation today. Our very first episode of Funko Pop Myths Explained. And I brought in some backup to help me explain these myths. I am proud to bring on the popular podcast, MythStorie. Put them up here for you guys so you can see them. This is Cammie and Bryant from MythStorie. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about how long you guys have been doing this great podcast.
Cammie, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to. Yeah, we've been doing it for about a year and a half. We started in September of 19, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and basically what we do is each week we take a myth, legend, cryptid, etc. We will give you the story, and then we'll give you the history behind it.
Yeah, it's a great show. We don't have like any professional academic background and all this stuff, but we do have a little bit going for us, and we just absolutely love, like, Cammie a little bit more so, but we just love talking about this stuff. And so it's a very chill podcast, very laid back. It's not hardcore history with Dan Carlin. It's what do you know about this? We'll find out. That's about it. So very, very chill, very fun.
Awesome. Well, again, guys, MythStorie is going to be helping us. This is going to be a new series. I'm going to take some of these logos down so you guys can see a little bit better. And again, this is the Funko Pop channel. You guys that are out here purchasing the Funko Pops, I know a lot of you probably like the myths, but the question is, do you really know the story and the background behind the myth? And I am pretty confident that you're going to learn stuff every one of these episodes. There are a ton of pop myths. And the crazy thing is there's a ton of pop Asia myths that I'm excited for us to do down the road too. So again, we're going to give you some stories. We're going to talk about today's episode. The first one is going to be about Bigfoot. We're going to tie some pop stuff in, some cool videos for you guys to see. There's going to be a lot to learn, and we're going to kick things off and let Cammie kind of tell us a little bit about the story of Bigfoot.
Great. Yeah, so I used oddencounters.com Bigfoot Sightings for this story. In June of 2001, a youth group stumbled upon a makeshift shelter consisting of branches and felled trees. The group searched the immediate area and found marks on the nearby trees, which seemed to be from some sort of large animal. The shelter was large enough to fit a grown man in a seated position. It was deep enough for someone to lie down. The felled tree was done by force, not a tool, and the branches appeared to be broken, not sawed. While recording their find, the boys pointed out a figure on the hill. It was a great distance away, and the camera technology at the time was not able to capture more than a grainy image walking upright in the distance. The creature's arms hung much lower than a man's, and he seemed angry at the sight of the group. He waved his arms wildly at them and let out a noise that could be heard on the film. After about 6 minutes of filming, the video cuts to the next morning. Unfortunately, the man who did this has passed away and does not have appeared to release the video or his story in his lifetime. But the footage has been analyzed by independent researchers and appears to be authentic. The researchers claim that the creature was at least 7 feet tall and weighed probably close to 700 pounds.
It's me on a heavy weekend, right?
Wow. I'm about to say, if I was that tall, that would have helped me in a lot of sports.
Yeah.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah, that's so funny. That's not the footage, like the famous footage, is it? Of him walking?
No, that was like from the 60s. That was like the famous footage.
Okay.
But it's very similar. It looks very similar to the walk that you see in that one and everything.
One big thing I learned was that that actually is like supposed to be a female Bigfoot in that famous one. That was one big thing, because you if you look closely, you can actually see breasts, like hanging.
Wow.
The word that Wikipedia used was pendulous. Pendulous breasts, just going back and forth. Yeah, so Bigfoot is pretty well known in general, right? Like I think
Right.
everyone's kind of heard about Bigfoot. Every like cartoon I saw as a kid, and it's kind of funny because I started doing this research the way that we do. I try and give you details. I try and like, what are the sources? How old is this thing? And it's kind of cool. Like the word Sasquatch is sort of the main name that we have for this myth, and it turns out that that's a really old name from a North American tribe of the Salish people, and it means wild man, and that makes sense, right? Well, unfortunately, it looks like Bigfoot and Sasquatch even is really more of a 19th century at best creation. And it looks like, so, you've got a bunch of America settled in easily by the 1800s. We're getting close to into the Industrial Revolution, but there's a lot of wild lands and stuff like that. And you've got these Americans moving in, and you've also got these old Native American stories of wild men. And it looks like that's really the like main cause of all these stories is these wild men or wild people stories. And it looks like the name Sasquatch, it didn't really have like some deep meaning. We had a Yeti episode and we talked a little bit about that, where they believe Yeti does have an older meaning. But it looks like Sasquatch was actually invented. That word was invented by a British explorer in the 1920s. Now he apparently like took some Salish people words like Soquitl and Sasquatl, which also kind of mean like wild person or wild man, and he kind of just anglicized it and made it Sasquatch. So it doesn't have a huge old deep depth. There are some really cool in Native American stories though of like a screaming woman. That was kind of wild, and I thought that was notable too, because apparently the Sasquatch is always like it screams and howls. There was apparently even this in the 1970s. There was this like retired Navy. What's the fancy word? He analyzes crypto like linguistics, and he like listened to it and was like, oh, this is definitely like a language. This isn't fake at all. Like this is 100% real. So this old retired like Navy officer was like, yes, this is definitely a new language, when they heard like alleged recordings of it. But yeah, the biggest thing like people kind of say is there's this ancient relative to the orangutan called Gigantopithecus. And this fossil that we've seen in Asia, and this is most
I was
commonly
prepared to help you with that pronunciation.
Good job. Good job.
But you got it.
Yeah, I've been practicing. And that was what people kind of say, which we have evidence of. We have, I think it was the jawbone of it mainly, and it's a relative, an ancient relative of the orangutan, and they think that's the Yeti's, great grandma or whatever. So that makes sense. Now, they think, some people say maybe that's also the relative of the Sasquatch or Bigfoot, even though this was in Asia. But back Pangea plate tectonics, they could have walked over the Bering Strait.
Yeah,
exactly. So a lot of things did move around, and this could have moved, even though we don't have any evidence for that. So it's. Yeah, go ahead.
And back then, Brian, like when you're talking about, even it goes back like the word Bigfoot.
Yeah,
you do with the research, you're like all the way back, like you're saying, the 1800s.
Yeah,
and that was originally that was just giant like tracks and animal like prints in the ground, and that's when they had kind of turned them like Bigfoot, because they were bigger than ones they had ever seen. But that's where the term Bigfoot comes from originally, right?
Yeah, and it didn't, like, it wasn't, especially in the 1800s, it wasn't just to describe this creature. That kind of came later, calling it Bigfoot. I think that was in like even the 1950s is really when it kind of stuck. One of my sources says that it was a word that came from an Iroquois speaking people. And it was, I think, like a transliteration from their language, meaning Bigfoot. That was just one source I found. I used Britannica, Wikipedia, and a couple of little places, like LA Times. There's a ton of write-ups on these, because Bigfoot's so darn popular. Yeah. And it's nice because I can find so much information, but it's also not nice because some dude in his attic with a blog is writing, and he's writing it like it's fact,
Yeah. There's even, like, it's even gotten to this point, like there's even is it a Bigfoot Hunters TV show now? Have you
Oh,
seen,
there's a
have you
couple of
seen
them.
that?
Yeah. Yeah, I have. I love this. It's my favorite thing.
Well, there's like big money in these groups that are made. There's tons of these Bigfoot organizations that are like specifically set on finding out this stuff. Now, I got to give it like a direct shout out because this is one of the best. There's this the program or a program of the Center for Inquiry, CFI. This is probably one of my best sources. What they do, so they have this subsect, a science subsect called the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, or CSI. Go figure. And they did a really great write-up because it was funny. I did all my research, and this was the last source that I found. And they basically just spun everything on its head and gave me great sources too. And that's where we get that this is really a Western man creation, just like how the Yeti really didn't get popular until like, Westerners, Europeans and Americans started really kind of coming in, even though it was a part of their culture. So there's the wild man thing that's going on. It kind of evolves. But I mean, you've got the Bigfoot suit, you've got fake footprints and other imprints and stuff like that. And it's just kind of funny how it keeps going on. Again, there's the Gigantopithecus explanation. There we go. But that doesn't really kind of hold up too much because there's no evidence that supports it. There's no evidence that supports it for the Yeti because we don't have anything for the Yeti. But it's just kind of interesting. The big thing is you'd think like in the 1800s that we got it from the native tribes, the indigenous peoples of the Americas, but that's kind of half true. That's kind of what I want you to get from the history of it.
Right.
Now, a lot of people love it. I don't know if y'all know Anne Goodall. She worked with chimpanzees. She was the famous, I think it's like
Jane Goodall.
Oh, did I? Oh, I said Anne Goodall. Jane Goodall. Thank you. Jane Goodall worked with, she was she worked with chimpanzees, really famous for that. She even was like, I believe in Bigfoot. I want Bigfoot to exist. I thought that was really fun. But despite that, there's really nothing that kind of goes through it. There's no science that supports that it comes up. But there was one last big thing that I found, and this reminded me of actually a video game. Was this veterinarian named Melba Ketchum, no relation to Ash Ketchum. She believes, spelled exactly the same. She believes that they found DNA evidence that the Sasquatch is a human relative that arose approximately 15,000 years ago as a hybrid cross of the modern Homo sapiens with an unknown primate species. And because of this, Ketchum called for this to be recognized officially, saying that the government on all levels must recognize and protect the human rights of the Sasquatch, of Bigfoot. And I thought that was kind of insane because that a lot of these groups are hell-bent on like murdering Bigfoot, funny enough. Not like discovering it, but like we must murder Bigfoot.
Yeah, we need a body.
That's what that TV show's about, right?
Hunting Bigfoot, not like hanging with Bigfoot. Yeah,
like squatching.
Homicide Bigfoot. Yeah, squatching. And it was really funny. Have y'all ever played the game Stellaris? It's it's kind of like Civilization, like Sid Meier's Civilization, but in space. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not saying that's shocking that I'm not.
I know. I'm shame on both y'all.
Yeah.
It's like the Sid Meier's Civilization. So you're building an empire, but you're in space. It starts you off in subspace light. And what's cool is you can create your own species, and they let you go crazy. Like you can have bird people, you can have roach people, you can have, fish people, but they're all kind of like, it's like if I took a bird and, went far enough in time to the point where it could create a spaceship, so they look like humans in a sense, but they have aviation or aviatory features, you know what I'm saying? So it made me think like, well, damn, yeah, like what if a freaking a Bigfoot like just kind of got stuck in the mountains for 15,000 years and then boom, did its own thing. So that was great. The last thing too, everyone knows the famous walk, right? Yeah. So the funny thing, if and I looked at the video again, big boobs hanging, you can see them, and that was a big thing. It's a total fake. They admitted to it. It was some big dude, one of the hoaxers, Roger Patterson. He totally faked it. He was trying to like sell it. he did that, and they had a guy came in, he analyzed the walking pattern and everything, and he debunked the whole thing. So if you think that footage is the thing, it's not. I'm sorry to say.
Well, I got a little bit of info too about the about some of the sightings. Like where are all these sightings coming from? Where are people saying they're seeing Bigfoot? So I got some info on that. It says about 1/3 of all the claims of Bigfoot sightings are located in the Pacific Northwest, with the remaining reports kind of spread throughout North America. But most reports, have been considered mistakes or hoaxes. But it's such a big phenomenon now in pop culture that there's all these regions like Washington, Oregon, Northern California, British Columbia that are popping up all these sightings, mainly in like rural areas, the Great Lake regions. But most of these have like differentiating like names for the creature. Some of them call them grass man, skunk ape, different names for them. But the debate over him, like him being legitimate Bigfoot sightings, reached a peak in the 1970s. So and it's crazy that it's kind of been around and all those sightings for this many years, right?
And that's really the 70s is when it there was like a small weird sect too where Bigfoot culture fused with UFO culture. And Cammie brought this up on our private chat. There's a group of people that believe that Bigfoot is like a Cthulhu style interdimensional being that has psychic powers. And that kind of, with the screeching, the behavior, the bipedal behavior, the fact that no one can ever catch it. Yeah. Not to mention the fact that, like we've been getting footprints of it for the last 200 years and they're all different, they all have different characteristics. So it just can't, it's just funny. But yeah, there was a wild little infusion in the 70s when the fever really blew up that this UFO culture, which was, started like after World War II, it was blown up. So people were like, put them together. What do you get? And then there you go.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm always interested in the myth stories, and Bigfoot's always been one that's intrigued me because you've always seen all this info and people saying they've seen them. So this was a really cool myth to talk about.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Mothman. We did a great episode on him, and he's super famous too. And it's like you were saying with the sightings. One sighting happens here, and then hey, look, in Russia they happen to see the same thing too after they read an article online about it. So it's funny how that happens.
Absolutely.
And Mothman is one of the series too, right? One of the pops.
It is. So stick around. If you hadn't hit the subscribe button already, please do, and hit the like button for us. We're going to be doing a lot of the myths, and I'll try to get as many of the Funko Pops of these myths as I can. If not, we'll put pictures up, but I've got one with me today too. But go ahead, Brian.
No, I was gonna say, if you can afford to get these damn things, like holy cow.
Yes. Some of these are insanely expensive, and I've got one here that I'm going to show you guys. If you hadn't seen it, I'm going to blow this up a little bit so
go for it,
a little easier to see it. Now, this is the Emerald City Comic-Con 2018 limited edition. It is flocked, and if you don't know what flock means, just so you guys can see it a little bit better, here you go. You can see the flock means it's kind of a felt type feel, that kind of cloth material. You can kind of see it in his beard and his body. But this one is an awesome pop. And again, if you hadn't seen this one, this is the actual con sticker. Sometimes they'll do shared stickers, but this is the con sticker. And I kind of were having you guys kind of guess about how much you thought it was worth before we started. Yeah. And this one is in particular is up to $370. Now, I'm sure if you can catch the real Bigfoot, you can probably get a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But
finding that one's pretty rare too, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. There might be one real Bigfoot, but there's 3,000 of those. But just to kind of
see the back of it real fast, like what it.
I will show you. Yeah. Let me blow this back up real quick. So here you go. It's got Bigfoot.
I love it.
Yep, him in
the
little
looks like
wood.
He's in Washington. Yeah, that's great.
And so a weird thing with the myth line, and I kind of talked to Cammie about this too. I have never found an answer of why this is. This is the first in the myth line. Why it starts at number 14, that's a myth in itself. So I can't find any information on why Funko started it with number 14 and not number 1 like everything else does. But there's a ton of other Bigfoot pops that I'll kind of like, we'll share them up if I put the images up on the screen. There's like a rainbow one that was a Funko Shop exclusive. There's a Bigfoot with him holding a stick. There's a flocked one, another one where he's all white instead of gray. Like
he's a Yeti.
Yeah, he's like a Yeti.
That's cool.
There's another one that's flocked. He's like purple and green, almost like a Hulk green face, but his fur is purple. So the cool one about the one that kind of looks like a Yeti, that was a Canada exclusive. So you know, maybe they saw him in Canada there, and they was like, we got to make this. We got to make
the area. Yeah, that's the area.
So, is there anything else that you guys like, about the myth and that you kind of want to bring up or wrap up about the Bigfoot story?
No, I think
there's just a ton of sightings. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to it, but I mean, there is more to it, but the sightings themselves, I mean,
right.
It's always grainy photographs.
Yeah.
Bigfoot, I have a theory Bigfoot's blurry because that's all you ever see is a blurry image. Right.
Yeah, there are a ton of people out there right now, just like trying to prove Jersey Devils out there, trying to improve Bigfoots out there, and there's a lot of money into it too. So I don't know, we might be like messing up the wrong people's opinion here, but it's a cool thing though.
This is a fun question to kind of ask you guys. On like a scale of 0 to 100, where are you guys at on believability of, does Bigfoot really exist, or something that people thought was a Bigfoot?
So Gigantopithecus definitely existed. So something that's very large, very big. Bears exist,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a huge
Kraken pretty much exists because there's a giant squid out there. I mean, I think believability wise, it sort of goes probably Kraken and then Bigfoot, like it's one of the more believable ones, but I do think there's a natural explanation for it. I think it's probably a bear or, something like that.
Right. I mean, that's it. Yeah. It was in 1820, I'd give it to him, but not anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's just, it's fun to talk about this stuff too.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, if there's a TV show of it, that's how many people are still trying to, debunk or find out if he's really out there. And again, is there anything else we want to bring up at the very end? There's always more. You guys talk about Bigfoot in your podcast. I know you've done an episode on Bigfoot. You guys haven't checked out MythStorie, they're in the description of this video. You can go find them on their podcast or YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Make sure they've got 90 episodes on the podcast?
Close 90. Depending on when this airs, actually, because we record a little bit ahead. So we're right around 90. We, like I say, a year and a half we've been doing it. Usually episodes will go up on Wednesday mornings. And we have some extra episodes we'll do as well. And we like to come do fun stuff with you here too, Cody. But yeah, check us out. Hit us up on our Facebook group. I know we're definitely connected with you there. So if you have any myth suggestions, is really the thing I always got to shout out. Even if you don't want to talk to us, if you got a really cool myth, just send it our way. Send it to Cody to send to us. Even we love finding out stuff that's not well known too. So that's the really cool part.
And again, guys, in the chat, we're going to wrap these up because we want to keep these episodes about 20 minutes for you. If there's myths you want to see, we're going to tie them to Funko Pops. And then if there's other stuff outside of Funko Pops that you want to see, I'll send it to Cammie and Bryant.
Please.
It's been awesome having you guys on. If you guys enjoyed today's video, leave a like, leave a comment. What was your favorite part? Have you had an encounter with Bigfoot? Let us know. Is there a good video footage that you love of Bigfoot that you like, and share it with us, and we'll be glad to check it out. We're going to wrap things up. This is a great first episode, and we look forward to bringing a lot more to you. Thank you, Cammie and Bryant, so much for coming on. I'll put this up one more time. If you guys hadn't checked them out, bam, there it is. That's how you spell MythStorie. So I know spelling can be hard.
It's tough.
STORIE, MythStorie. So check them out, guys. Thank you for a great video. We'll see you guys in the next video.
Thanks.
Thank you.